Yeah, so it's just thrilling to be here with you all today, and thanks for coming out to AWE Tel Aviv here, and to be in your beautiful city of Tel Aviv. It's my first trip here, and I have to say I'm just blown away by the beauty of your city. I'm from San Francisco, out in California, where we also have a pretty cool city, and it's been very thrilling for me to be here this week. To explore and see what you have to offer, and I'm looking forward to meeting many of you here at the show today. So today I just want to talk to you a bit about what we've learned over the last few years in terms of the market and where the opportunities lie in immersive computing. And I actually have had the opportunity to learn quite a bit about that because I spent the last 4 years in charge of all VR and AR content at HTC, where we were sort of pioneering the market with our hardware, which was pretty good. And my job was to create all of the software and all the content and all the applications. So I was very privileged to work with many companies around the world, from Asia to Europe to the Middle East, and of course in North and South America. And our job was to create really compelling applications and use cases that would help push this market forward. So that's what I want to share with you today, some of the things that we learned over the last few years in terms of what I call the blue ocean of immersive computing. So do we have any telekinetics here in the audience? If we do, could you please raise my right hand? No? No? Okay, all right, that's fine. Do we have any people here that are currently creating XR products, content, hardware? How many, just a quick show of hands, how many people are working in XR today? That'd be interesting to see, okay? Next question, and this will be my last question, and then that'll be it, you'll be off the hook. How many people are sort of, interested in XR but have not created any content or worked in the market so far, so are just trying to learn about the market? Any folks like that today? Great, so good mix of audience here. So, excellent. Well, happy to be here again, like I said. And, I want to start by saying that, XR is the third computing paradigm. I think some people, I'm not alone in thinking this, but I'm certainly a believer in that fact. And so, when we think about the XR market, we really are at a pivot point in the industry. And so, as we talk today, I want to focus on one concept over and over again, which is sort of the key takeaway I want folks to have out of this, and that's what we call full presence. Full presence is just the art of tricking the brain to thinking that you're someplace else than you actually are, right? So I like to call VR specifically the space-time machine, because with it, if you do your job right and you create really great content in VR, you can go anywhere in the universe throughout all of time, okay? And even if we think about, the ability to do that in a movie, in a 2D movie, where you could watch it on a screen and sort of see a historical past film, that has a certain amount of power. But when you immerse yourself in that story and you have a full 360 dimension and full presence feeling about that, it's a totally different experience. And I'm sure many of you today know what I'm talking about when I talk about full presence. So, I'm going to demonstrate that by just saying that they say that money can't buy you happiness, but money can buy you a ticket to Mario Kart VR. And I've never seen anybody having a bad time playing Mario Kart VR, okay? And I've been on there about 10 times myself. It's incredible. If you have the chance, I highly, highly recommend it. Let me just show you what I mean. Okay, so these two young ladies happen to be in line in front of me in Tokyo at the beautiful VR arcade that Namco Bandai created. And this is your brain on full presence VR, okay? I think they're having a good time. It looks like it, right? But these are full presence machines that they're in, Okay, this is absolutely the way to go if you're talking about immersive computing in 2019 heading into 2020. You know, as you can see, they're on little robot Mario Karts. They think that they're Mario, Princess Peach, and they're chasing Bowser, and they're throwing turtle shells at their opponents and popping balloons. It's incredible. Their brains are tricked into thinking they're Princess Peach and Luigi, right? So that's just one video that I love. I mean, they didn't know that I captured them while I was sitting there waiting for my turn, but they just demonstrated full presence for me so beautifully that I've been now showing them off around the world as I go and talk about immersive computing. Someday I'll maybe find them and let them know that. But again, at Sixense, so Sixense has been pioneering immersive computing for many years, right? And so I've just joined the company this year after pioneering VR with Vive for many years, and you know, Sixense got it very early that full presence is what the power. That's how you unlock the power of VR, is in by having a full presence system. And so you know what we've brought here today that you know you're welcome to come out and check out in our booth is 3 different full presence systems, and you know there's different use cases as well that we have. But the point is that if you're, you know, the bottom line is if you're working in VR, like you have to go full presence or just go home because it's not worth coming to the table otherwise. You're not going to have the full power. You're not going to be able to unlock what's really, really beneficial about these systems. So, you know, Sixense has learned these lessons over the past several decades, and they work time and time again to make sure that both the industry understands this and the partnerships that we put together are really utilizing that full power, full presence. So let me just back up just a moment to let you know a bit about my background. So I've been developing computer games and video games since the Sega Genesis era. So it's a little bit back there, about 93 I think I started at Sega. And you know, I got to create, these are some of the games that I was lucky enough to work on and create and produce and design. And you know, I had a very good time in my career creating fun for millions of people, but there's one title on this screen right here which rises above all the other ones. It's like night and day, and I'll tell you what it is right now. It's that one. So I was the producer for Unreal at GT Interactive, which you can see right there on the bottom right. That was the publisher of this game. We funded the entire game and the development of the Unreal Engine, which it turned out was way, way, way more important than this silly game. The game was pretty good. I mean, it got rated about 92 Metacritic, something like that. And you know, we thought we did a pretty good job with it, creating this kind of first-person shooter, but with way better graphics and much better networking than any of the games that were competing with it, which was Quake 2, at that time Doom and Duke Nukem. So, but we had no idea when we were creating this thing that it was going to become what it is today, which is now the standard in XR engine technology. And I like to tell my teams when they're asking me, you know, what kind of tools, what kind of framework should I use? And I tell them, you know, when we created Unreal, the Unreal Engine had about 5 million lines of code in it. Something like that, which is a lot. That's a lot of, you know, lines of code. If we've got any engineers here, it's a lot of work. It took about 4 years to create Unreal in the first version of the engine. I talked to Mark Rain recently, and he let me slip with a really interesting fact for me, and that is that today the Unreal Engine has over 100 million lines of code in it. And so if you use the Unreal Engine for your project, specifically for your VR or AR project, which it fully supports, that's 100 million lines of code that you don't have to write, which is amazing, right? You can, all of the rendering is taken care of, all of the physics, all of the texture mapping, all of the networking, that's stuff that's done. You don't have to worry about it. So I highly encourage you to start at the base with the Unreal Engine, and you will definitely have a huge leg up on, you know, creating some incredible applications. So while I was at Vive, we, you know, partnered with hundreds of studios around the world that had ideas, but maybe they didn't have the funding, or they, you know, had funding, but they needed distribution. And our job was to help this market grow and to try to support as many teams as we could to develop killer apps in VR and AR as well. But as you can see, it's a wide variety of use cases here, right? So there's 3D design, which is how I actually met Sixense. They were developing Make VR Pro, which is an incredible 3D design app that lets you, in 3D, create 3D models that are solid that you can then put into your game project, you can put into your animation, or really cool, you can 3D print them, right there. I had my 8-year-old son go into Make VR Pro when I was first seeing it for myself to see if a kid could sort of understand how to do it. Within 20 minutes, he created an incredible robot, and we sent it out to the 3D printer, and he created his own real object that he could play with in virtual reality. I just loved that product, and as a matter of fact, I signed it up, and that's how I got introduced to Sixense. But as you can see, there's just a wide variety of different types of content here that you can create in VR. A lot of this was using Unreal, but there's also Unity out there. Let's give Unity a little shout out as well. They support XR platforms, and it's fantastic. It's really about going after the market, the use case, and the industry that you want to work in. That's really what you have to focus on. So as I mentioned before, we believe that XR is the third computing paradigm, right, after PC and mobile. So as you can see from this technology adoption chart, there's been some fantastic technologies invented here over the sort of last 100 years that most of them just sort of go up and to the right, with the exception of the telephone landline, okay? Went up and to the right and then came back down. But that's because of the other disruptive technology that came up behind it, the mobile computing. So the first computing paradigm was the PC, sort of in the 1980s. My father used to have a mainframe timeshare computer back in the 1980s. He was on the forefront of that, and that was my first introduction to computing, right, where you had the computing in the cloud, so to speak, which was very, very cool in those days because no one else had one. But that got us up to sort of PC market, and then up to about the mid-2000s, where finally mobile computing became powerful enough to where you could put the power of a PC, in your pocket, and then you had all of that power that you can utilize. So, fast forward to 2016, 2017, you can see the little green shoots of immersive computing starting to appear with, the Oculus DK1 that showed up, and then the Steam and HTC Vive collaboration, which was clearly the sort of, leader in terms of power for a few years. And so that unlocked a lot of different opportunities for companies and for early adopters, because it was not quite ready for consumers, as we all know. The power was not quite powerful enough, certainly not convenient enough, and the content wasn't there yet. So, but the basic idea is that we went from multi-million-dollar VR caves, which were frankly not very immersive, to about $1,500 you could put a really nice full presence machine on your desktop, and you could scale that across a company. So while it's not quite ready for consumers at this price point and convenience factor, it is absolutely useful for companies and enterprises, and that's what the stage that we're in today. So now let's talk about this blue ocean market that I've been promising to talk about. So previous to Vive, I was working at 505 Games, and my job was to create mobile games and to sort of try to create a successful business back in 2012, 2013 around mobile games. And if you recall, that market back then was dominated by a game called Clash of Clans and Candy Crush. And those were what I call the big sharks out there in the ocean of mobile gaming. And so if I launched my little fish into this market, those guys just swallowed it up instantly. They had hundreds of millions of users, and it was such a winner-take-all market in the mobile game space that it was very, very difficult to survive. So one day I was sitting there listening to one of my heroes, Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari, and he was at a conference just like this and talking about, what he thought of the market. And they asked him, Nolan, what do you think of the mobile games market today? And he said, I remember it very clearly. He said, yeah, I look at the mobile games market today as a red ocean. He said, it's a very, very red ocean. I look out there and I see it, and that scares the hell out of me. And he said, what I look for is blue ocean markets. And he said, when I look out over the landscape today, the biggest blue ocean I see in front of us is VR and AR, and what we now call, XR, the combination of those two. And I thought about that for a little bit, and I said, wow, that's interesting. That's the pioneering sort of market of what we're all doing with applications, with computer-based applications. And so I was very interested in that. And that was kind of my first thought of like, wow, I should check this out a bit more. Well, a little bit later, we got pitched at 505 Games also on some VR games. As a matter of fact, we signed one to just sort of test the market. It was called Adrift, a sort of space-based adventure, and we tried to put it out on the Oculus Rift. And that was my first introduction to how to create content in VR. So I later went to Vive to go help them really attack this market and really try to build it. And today, I want to share with you what I see as the blue ocean of immersive computing, which is this right here. So as I went around the world, exploring and looking for companies that we could support and looking for who needed our help and investment and funding, these are the top 50 use cases across the top 10 industries of immersive computing, without question. And when I say that, what I mean is all of these, there are companies that are working in each one of these areas today. And many of them are already finding out the best practices of these use cases and what works and what does not work. So if you just look across there, you can see, healthcare, training, education, arcades, tourism, government applications, retail, real estate, manufacturing, and then I have this big bucket over there called other, but there's some very exciting use cases and industries in that one as well. But I'd need a second slide to put that one on. So, consumer, as we've talked about, we're not quite there. The price is too high. The power's not high enough. There's not enough content, and the convenience isn't there. But we're very, very close. I'd say in 2021 to 2022, those factors are going to come together where you have something that is way more powerful than the Oculus Quest, because the next generation of Qualcomm chips for the all-in-ones is going to give us the power. And then the content is already being created. People have been now working on understanding how to create content for the last several years. So the content's going to be there. And the final factor that we have to get to is the price. And my prediction is that when we have the next generation all-in-one Quest that is at $199 as a consumer price point, that's when we see the hockey stick happen in consumer VR. And that's looking like it'll be about 2021, maybe 2022, so a few years out, right? So we're not in the consumer VR market at all today, and so what we need to work on is in the enterprise space. So that's a lot of use cases. I'm gonna point at just the top three, right? Top three industries that we see having momentum, revenue, and opportunities today, right? So that's healthcare, entertainment in the LBE market primarily, and in training. So let's double click into those quickly and talk about each of those top three, because that's where, if you're interested in trying to figure out where's the opportunity for my business today, it's likely going to be in one of these three. So healthcare. Healthcare is amazing, and it's just ripe for disruption with XR and immersive computing. Without question, medical therapy is a bit antiquated. If you know anybody that's had to go through therapy, there are some things that work, but a lot that don't. There's so much more that immersive computing can bring to the table there. So Sixense and Penumbra a few years back partnered to create this sales training tool, because they developed a stroke catheter which had actually improved people's outcomes when they were having a stroke, because their new device would allow doctors to clear a blood clot in the brain within 5 minutes, and many times less than 5 minutes from the starting time. So that was revolution, because previous equipment could take a half an hour, could take an hour, could take longer. And as we know with stroke, that's not good. The quicker you can clear that blood clot, the better off the outcome's going to be for the patient. So they created this incredible sales tool which allowed their company to go out and show people how their equipment was going to save and improve people's lives. Fast forward to today, and what we have, that is now, that partnership between Sixense and Penumbra has now resulted in what we call the Real System. Okay, that's what this is right here. And it has a all-in-one 6 degree of freedom headset, which is based on the Vive Focus. Very nice 3K lens resolution. It has 6 body sensors for full body tracking, or sorry, for upper body tracking. That's arms, head, and trunk. And this is for use in traumatic brain injury therapy. And this is going to improve people's lives drastically. I've already seen it working. And as you can see, if you go to realsystem.com, you can actually get more information about this device, as well as if you come by our booth back there, you can actually try it for yourself, and you'll see the power of what this is going to do to absolutely disrupt the medical therapy market and with regards to traumatic brain injury. So I'm just thrilled to be working on this product. As a matter of fact, while I was at Vive, I was helping to work with the headset part of this, and Sixense has been working very actively with Penumbra now for several years to create this amazing product. So I highly recommend you come out and check it out during the day. So moving on to training. So Sixense, again, has been working in the training market for quite a while and has been partnering with companies to create real hardcore vocational skills training projects. And one of those was a project called SimSpray, which again is full presence because we don't do anything that's not full presence. And we built this product which actually trains people to spray paint, which is a vocational skill. And it has been used by Honda, for instance, to train their employees, but also to recruit the future workforce. So let me just listen to them tell what they use this for.
Back in the mid-'80s when I started painting, the majority of it was hand applied. The training was hands-on on production units. Now I look back on it and a lot of waste is involved in that type of training.
Most of our production facilities, robots do the painting. A robot may be down, so we still have to do some manual paintings. So we have a tool here called the Virtual Painter that helps a person understand kind of the basics of how to paint.
Before VR technology, we had to have actual physical assets. We would have to have students actually operate that equipment. Now it allows a student to learn the skills, but in a virtual way.
It looks like a paint booth. I mean, that's actually what the paint booths at Honda look like. Headset and the gun pick up everything that you do. You have to let off the trigger on the edges of the parts. You have to bend down. You have to keep your distance from the car and make sure all your angles and your flow is right.
You push a button and you have a clean part to start with. It gives you a lot of repetitions in a pretty short period of time, which you can't get in the production environment today.
More and more people are becoming familiar with in terms of entertainment and things outside of learning. So it allows us to leverage that familiarity to get them excited about learning and obtaining new skills in the workforce.
So this makes me so excited to see young kids in the Honda tour, taking a tour of their plant and learning about immersive computing. And the Honda, actually, we didn't sell that to them. They found the product and they put it in use. And they're out there actively promoting it to recruit a next workforce. So that's fantastic. But now that this product has been in the market for several years, we have the data that shows how great this is. And right, if you can reduce your material costs for a training program by 50%, that's a win. If you can train people 6 times faster than you could normally, that's a win. And if you can reduce your overall operating cost by 20%, you'll probably take it, right? So this is a fantastic product, and again, it's using full presence and 6 degree of freedom headset and super accurate sub-millimeter tracking that really brings the whole product into focus. The second training program I want to talk to you about is what we call the Vertex immersive training for welding, right? So this is a hardcore skill. It's actually pretty dangerous, as you can imagine, with gas, fire, flames, and you need a helmet to protect yourself from the brightness of the heat and light. So this is an amazing product as well, and we have this on display that you can try out as well. You can, within 8 hours, you can learn to be a welder, right, which is a real skill that people can use. So I'm just going to zip through this, but the main thing that for me, when I see all the data around the Vertex program, because this has been studied for white papers at universities now because it's such an effective training program, and yes, it helps reduce your training costs, yes, it's safer, but for me, the really, really key takeaway from this slide is that it increases certification rates by 42%. That's almost a 50% leap in having people that start your training program, that finish your training program and get their certification. So that is a fantastic result, and that's something that we call bottom line win. So quickly, I'm just going to zip through location-based entertainment, which is the third industry that I wanted to showcase today. This is Sandbox VR. I don't know if anybody's tried this. It is absolutely amazing. This is full presence, right? You have full body tracking, you have haptic vests, you have super accurate tracking of your weapons, and you can see it's a co-op, multiplayer experience. And this is absolutely killing it. They're stamping these out around the world right now because they're able to recoup their entire startup costs within months, right? Because so many people love doing this, and it's so much fun. It's like in a room, you can have a theme park, right? So this is the future of location-based entertainment, and Sandbox VR is absolutely killing it, and they've got it 100% right. Finally, 360. So 360 video is not traditionally immersive enough. It's not full presence, right? Because an easy way to understand that is if I move my head in 360, in a 360 video, the world moves with me, and that's not natural. That makes people feel uncomfortable, right? So what happens in real life is if I move my head, the world stands still. And so that's been a problem with 360 video. While I was at Vive, we set out to create this film called 7 Miracles, and we set out to both make a feature-length film in VR, which we did. We accomplished that and launched it last year. But we also wanted to push the tech and figure out, how can you solve the problem of 360 video not being full presence, not being immersive enough? And we absolutely solved that problem. I'm just going to show you real quick how we did it. Volumetric capture, okay? So this is a technique you can see where you've got performance capture in a green screen studio with the cameras pointing inwards and 2 actors in the middle of the room, so you can see the process there, how we did it. And this allows the user to then walk around the film, and the film stays still, the world stays still, the actors, and you are able to walk around in full immersion. So today, 360 video, while this is volumetric capture, can be integrated in together and blended to give people that full presence feeling, which we feel is just absolutely vital to success. Okay, almost wrapping here. I realize I'm a little bit over, but let me just leave you with this. This is amazing. So I belong to the board of the Academy of International Extended Reality, which is AIXR right now, and this organization is pushing to help the industry grow. And what we did is we figured, look, we hear a lot that people are asking, like, I wish I knew, where I could find the results of what's been out there in the research, in the white papers, in the studies about XR's effectiveness. So what we did is at this website, which you can see there, resources.aixr.org, we've compiled all of the best research that's out there today. Right now, there's 125 white papers, research studies, and peer-reviewed research that is available on this portal. And you can go there and you can just download it and look at it. You can scan through it, find out what's vital to your business or your industry. All of it's there, the training, the healthcare, all of it. And it's free for download, and I highly, highly encourage you to go and check it out. You will definitely find things that will be useful for you and your business there. So, in closing, this is the blue ocean of immersive computing. There's lots to do here. There's plenty to work on. It's a very exciting time for all of us that are here working on it. I thank you very, very much for coming today. And we look forward to working together with all of you to improve millions and millions of people's lives with immersive computing. Thank you very much.